The hustle and bustle of the corporate building's lobby echoed with the sound of clicking heels, murmured conversations, and the occasional ring of a phone. It was an ordinary day at Magnus Corporation, one of the most successful and fast-growing tech firms in the country. The building was a testament to modern architecture, with gleaming glass walls, high ceilings, and an air of exclusivity that made visitors pause in awe. Standing just outside the entrance was David Carter, a tall black man in his early 40s, dressed in a simple but elegant navy blue suit. His polished shoes reflected the sunlight, and his demeanor exuded quiet confidence. Despite his unassuming appearance, David had a commanding presence, one that would make people instinctively take notice. But today that presence would be tested in an unexpected way. David approached the revolving glass doors, only to be stopped by the company's front desk secretary, a sharply dressed woman in her late 30s named Linda. She had a poised demeanor, but her expression hardened the moment she saw David. "Excuse me, sir," Linda said, stepping out from behind her desk to block his path. "May I help you?" David smiled politely. "Good morning. I'm here for a meeting on the top floor." Linda's eyebrows shot up and she crossed her arms. "Do you have an appointment?" "Yes, I do," David replied, "but I believe it's not listed under my name." Linda's eyes narrowed as she gave him a once-over, her skepticism evident. "Sir, this is a high-security building. We don't allow walk-ins without proper authorization. Perhaps you're at the wrong address." David's smile didn't falter. "I assure you I'm in the right place. Maybe you could call upstairs and confirm." Linda sighed, clearly impatient. "I don't think that will be necessary. If you don't have a badge or proper documentation, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to leave." At this point, a few employees passing through the lobby began to take notice of the exchange. Some whispered among themselves, while others simply watched the scene unfold. David remained calm, his hands resting casually in his pockets. "Ms. Linda, isn't it?" David asked, glancing at her name tag. "I understand your concern, but I assure you my business here is legitimate. I'm happy to wait while you make a call." Linda's patience was wearing thin. "Listen, sir," she said, her tone now more condescending. "This company doesn't entertain solicitors or uninvited guests. I'm going to have to ask you to step outside before I call security." Before David could respond, a sharp voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" Both David and Linda turned to see Mark Reynolds, the company's chief operating officer, striding toward them. His tailored suit and confident gait marked him as a man of authority. The moment Mark's eyes landed on David, his expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Mr. Carter," Mark exclaimed, extending his hand as he reached David. "I didn't realize you'd arrived already. My apologies for not greeting you personally." Linda's face went pale. She glanced between Mark and David, her mind racing to piece together what she had just heard. David shook Mark's hand with a warm smile. "No problem, Mark. I've only been here a few minutes." Mark turned to Linda, his tone now cold. "Linda, do you have any idea who this is?" Linda stammered, her confidence evaporating. I thought he didn't have proper credentials." "This," Mark said, gesturing to David, "is Mr. David Carter, the owner and CEO of Magnus Corporation." The air seemed to leave the room as gasps rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. Linda's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, but no words came out. David's expression remained kind, though there was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. "I understand Linda was just doing her job," he said calmly, "but perhaps this is a good opportunity for us to review how we treat people, regardless of their appearance or background." Mark nodded vigorously. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Carter. Linda, I expect you to report to HR immediately for a discussion about this incident." Linda's face burned with humiliation as she mumbled an apology to David before hurrying away. The crowd dispersed quickly, their curiosity sated, but the lesson lingered in the air. Mark gestured toward the elevators. "Shall we head up?" David nodded. As they walked together, Mark couldn't help but marvel at David's grace under pressure. "You handled that remarkably well, sir," Mark said. David smiled. It's not the first time something like this has happened, but every moment is an opportunity to educate and inspire change. That's how we move forward. By the time David reached the top floor, the story of his encounter had already spread like wildfire throughout the building. Employees whispered about the CEO who had been mistaken for an outsider, and many felt a newfound respect for their leader. For David, it wasn't about making a scene or embarrassing anyone. It was about exemplifying the values of dignity, respect, and progress, values that had built Magnus Corporation into the powerhouse it was today.